Gilad.
Hello, Gilad. How are you?
Great. It's a pleasure and an honor to host you. And I'll be hosting this event. Right now, I understood that this is what I'm going to do. And I was very honored and pleased to work with Carmit on editing the translations. Beautiful poetry was very exciting, and thank you very much.
Oh, well, thank you for your work too. And translating is so difficult, and I know how that is. So thank you. So will Carmit be joining us, or is she?
Yeah.
Okay.
She is,
and we're all together. We're all set.
In a few minutes, yeah, sure.
Okay, great. So how long has the festival been going on? Is it?
It is 3 days, every evening, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Here in Israel is every evening,
Yes.
Afternoon. Yesterday we had a Korean poet that it was one at the night for her.
Oh, I see. One at night. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah. Here is Kermit.
Great.
כרמית, את יכולה לפתוח, שנראה, שנשמע, שנדע.
היי כרמית.
Anyway, one good thing about doing it via Zoom is last night we hosted Tusiata Avia from New Zealand. She broke her legs.
Oh, no.
And the broadcast was from the hospital.
No.
And, yeah, it was really exciting. You know, that's a good way to spend your time in the hospital, you know, doing reading.
I guess if you have to stay there, yeah, you might as well. But, wow, that is exciting. I wouldn't want to do that, but, you know what.
That's the way it happened. That's the beauty of it.
Yes,
although it's terrifying, 2 legs broken, but she was so lively and happy, and I think that's some kind of a remedy.
Yes, to be able to connect with people and continue doing things even though both legs are broken. Yeah, I can see that. Wow. Yeah, I mean, Zoom, let's face it, during the pandemic, the worst part of the pandemic, I think, you know, it was a lifesaver in a way to be able to communicate with people, at least that, yeah.
Yeah, we don't think usually as technology, especially communications, is a way for therapy. But here it is. Here it is. Everything could be...
Carmit, hi.
Yes, here it is. Here we are.
Hi.
Hi, Carmit.
I don't see myself here. Now it's good to see.
Carmit, are you... דרך אגב, אני בסוף מנחה, כרמית, לא נורא.
What?
Carmit, can you hear us, see us?
She's frozen.
Carmit?
Okay. Yeah, is everything fine?
You're frozen.
I think your internet connection is disabled. We don't hear you well.
Yeah. I didn't have a message that there is a problem, but I let's see. Is there now a problem? Is there a problem now? No? Is it okay?
Yeah, you're frozen.
Yes.
Yes, you're frozen. It's maybe the place you are.
אני פשוט תוהה אם להתחיל לברס את רשת דרך הטלפון. למה, יש שוב בעיה?
תנסי רגע להיכנס. תיכנסי ותצאי בכלל. באופן עקרוני, תיכנסי ותצאי ואז נראה. כן.
להיכנס ולצאת?
תצאי ותיכנסי, כן, ונראה. יכולתם?
מציע שאני אצא ולהיכנס מחדש?
כן, רגע, הנה משהו קורה פה.
בדרך כלל אין לי פה בעיות באינטרנט.
Okay, we told her to go out and then get in. We'll see how it works.
Yeah, that's what happens sometimes.
Everything worked fine, you know?
Yeah, I know. And here we were praising technology.
Yeah.
It's wonderful until...
irony is so lively.
Oh, I know. I've done Zooms during blackouts with telephones. So let's hope that this works.
It's going some way, somehow.
Yeah,
it works.
It works. We'll make it work. Oh, there goes my. We will hope.
נצר, מה קורה?
She's entered now. Just now.
מה?
She's now entering. There she is. Just a minute.
גלעד, אתם רואים אותי?
אני לא רואה אותך, אבל שומע. קצת קטוע. את נכנסת דרך הנייד?
רואים.
כן, זה לקח קצת זמן באמת. It took some time, and you don't see me? It took some time. That's right, it took some time.
אבל זה את בשחור.
לא.
Do you want me to try to do it from the cell phone? מה זאת אומרת? לא רואים אותי? You don't see me?
No.
You don't see me?
No, we don't see you. No.
How weird. Okay, so let's try for a moment to do it through the cell phone.
Yeah. Sure.
Tension in the house. I'll try for a moment through the cell phone. You don't see me because I see myself, but
now we see you, but you are frozen.
Yeah, I'm frozen again.
I apologize for.
Let's start.
Okay, so let's begin.
Okay, it's a bit. We'll begin, of course. Okay.
I'll introduce you, Carmit, and then you introduce Rita, okay?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so good evening. I'm very happy to be here. It's a miracle, a technological miracle so far, but also it's a miracle anyway. So in Israel, you know, we're used to miracles all over the place. You know, this is our history. And this is another one of these miracles. The second day of the Poetry Place International Festival number 4. Welcome. My name is Gilad Meiri, and I'm the artist director of Poetry Place and the festival, along with Noah Shakarji and Netzer Lau. And I'm honored to introduce Carmit Rosen, and I will introduce Rita in a second. Carmit is a hyphen poet. She's a poet of Haifa. She now is an author and bibliotherapist. Her story, Wild Boars, won first prize in the Haaretz newspaper short story competition in 2019. Recently, her manuscript won the Haifa Poetry Prize and will be published by Pardes, along with her first prose book. Alongside her work as therapist, she teaches poetry and creative writing in the Department of Literature, Language, and Arts in the Open University. And Kharmit, please.
Okay, so good evening, good noon to you. Miss Dove, may I call you Rita?
Absolutely.
So I'm sorry for the challenging opening, but here we are. I'm so excited to meet you at this valuable international festival organized with much thought and care by Poetry Place. I was getting lost in Rita Dove's words and ideas, and translating some of her brilliant poems is a special experience for me. As a writer and a woman, it's really a blessing. So I want to thank you. We're really grateful for your willingness to dedicate some of your precious time to us. And I want to introduce you. Sadly, Israeli audiences, including poets, do not know Rita Dove so well. And so here is some important information. Rita Dove was born in Akron, Ohio in 1952, author of a novel, a book of short stories, essays, and numerous volumes of poetry. Rita Dove won the Pulitzer Prize for her third book of poetry, Thomas and Beulah, in 1987, and served as the United States Poet Laureate from 1993 to 1995. She received the National Humanities Medal from President Clinton and the National Medal of Art from President Obama, the only poet ever to receive both. Her most recent honors include the 2019 Wallace Stevens Award, the American Academy of Arts and Letters 2021 Gold Medal in Poetry, as the third woman and first African-American woman in the 110 years of the Academy's highest honor. And the list of the prizes goes on. And what I found very interesting is that her song cycle with composer Richard Daniel Poor, A Standing Witness, was originally sung by Susan Graham at the Kennedy Center in 2021, and we'll read its prologue very soon. And Rita Dove teaches creative writing at the University of Virginia, and her wonderful latest poetry collection, which I hold, I'm lucky to hold, Playlist for the Apocalypse, was published in 2021. So Rita, I invite you please to tell us a few words, or if you want, you may open with Beside the Golden Door. We are point to poem, whatever you like.
Well, I think thank you so much for that introduction, and I'm really pleased, so pleased to be here. I will start with this poem, Beside the Golden Door, which is the prologue, as Carmit said, to a song cycle. It was originally composed for the song cycle, though I wanted it to be a poem as well. And I'll read the poem and then we can talk about it, okay? Beside the Golden Door. Surely there must be something beautiful to smile upon. The umbered blue edge of sky as it fades into evening, the brusque green heave of the sea. When I look up, surely there will be a cloud or a lone star dangling. Truth is, the truth has gone walking, left her perch for the doves and ravens to ravage, hightailed it to the hills, to the quiet beyond rivers and trees. No matter what ragged carnival may be thronging the streets, what bleak homestead or plantation of sorrows howling its dominion, truth would say these are arrogant times. Believers slaughter their doubters, while the greedy oil their lips with excuses, and the righteous turn merciless, the merciful mad.
על סף הדלת המוזהבת, פרולוג. חייב להיות משהו יפה שאפשר לחייך אליו. קצה ענברי כחול של שמיים, נמוג לתוך הערב. תנודת ים ירוקה, פתאומית, כשאני מביטה מעלה, אראה בוודאי ענן או כוכב בודד מתנדנד. האמת, שהאמת הלכה לטייל, עזבה את קנה למדרס, יונים ועורבים, נסה על נפשה לגבעות, לשקט שמעבר לעצים ולנהרות. היא הייתה אומרת, אלה זמנים של יהירות. לא משנה איזה קרנבל מרופט גודש את הרחובות, או איזו נחלה שוממת, או מטה יגונות. מכתירים עצמם בהיללה. המאמין שוחט את הספקן, החמדן מושך שפתיו בתירוצים, והצדיק חסר רחמים, הרחמן משתגע.
Thank you. This poem is unfortunately very, very prescient, I suppose you could say. It does speak to our times now. And I think that when I was writing it, it was about 2018 or so. It wasn't that long ago. Of course, in this country, in the United States, we were contending with Trump, and we are still contending with the hatred and division that he has started and stirred up. Well, not started, but actually just stirred up. And I think it also certainly speaks to many troubled and really painful things that are happening today in Israel and Ukraine. It's unfortunate. I had hoped when writing it that this era was over, but it is not. The whole circumstances of writing that poem came at the, actually it was initiated by the composer, Richard Daniel Poor, who had approached me to write a song cycle dealing with the last 60 years or so of American history and the history, which of course also has its ramifications, echoes throughout the world. But there are 12, 13 songs or poems in all that kind of take us through the years from starting with about 1968 with the double assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy, and then the spiral of hate that started. And the standing witness turns out to be the Statue of Liberty, who sees it all but is powerless to act. So that's how that whole thing began. And this prologue was meant to be her cry out to the general situation that she saw, not only in the United States, but all over the world.
Thank you, Rita. I must admit, I'm sort of jealous that you have witnessed the Statue of Liberty in these days. I just think, that we don't, I can't imagine at the moment an Israeli monument that stands for what the Statue of Liberty stands for. So you're lucky to have this witness, and we're lucky to feel that this poem stands for us too nowadays. with a
I want to
sir.
say something, Kרמית. You chose this poem to translate.
Yeah.
And today I read this poem in the radio. This specific poem, it's a beautiful poem. And we talked about how relevant it was. And give us the shivers. I mean, so you chose for us a little Statue of Liberty. Yeah. This poem, and by the way, some other poems that you chose. And I know that in your translation was great and beautiful. Rita, you should know that Carmit translated them beautifully. And the poems that you chose are very relevant to what we are going through here, this crazy right-wing leaders. Everybody is kind of, we hosted the Tusiata Avia from New Zealand, and she said the same thing. And we're going to host Jacek Daniel from Poland. He's saying the same thing. It reminds me 100 years ago when there was this kind of, I guess, illness in many countries of fascism.
Yes.
Back to you, Kרמית.
Okay, thank you. I suggest that we will read the next poem, and we'll continue.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
The next poem is an earlier poem. It's called Exit.
Mm-hmm.
Just when hope withers, a reprieve is granted. The door opens onto a street like in the movies, clean of people, of cats, except it is your street you are leaving. Reprieve has been granted provisionally, a fretful word. The windows you have closed behind you are turning pink, doing what they do every dawn. Here it's gray. The door to the taxi cab waits. This suitcase, the saddest object in the world. Well, the world's open. And now through the windshield, the sky begins to blush, as you did when your mother told you what it took to be a woman in this life.
אקזיט. בדיוק כשהתקווה דועכת, מקבלים ויזה. כמו בסרטים, הדלת נפתחת לרחוב ריק, ללא אנשים, חתולים, אלא שזה הרחוב שלך שאת עוזבת. גזר הדין מומתק, זמנית, מילה מעצבנת. החלונות שהגפת מאחורייך מברידים, עושים מה שעושים מדי שחר. כאן אפור, דלת המונית ממתינה. מזוודה זאת, החפץ העצוב ביותר בעולם. ובכן, הכל פתוח. עכשיו מבעד לשמשה הקדמית, השמיים מתחילים להסמיק, כמוך, בעת שאימא שלך סיפרה לך. מה זה אומר להיות אישה בחיים האלה?
Shall I continue with the other two poems, or how do we want to do this, Carmit?
Yeah, we can continue. Maybe I say something about this this poem and the two others. I think that when one reads your poems, your woman voice is something which is hard to miss. And between many other things, I hear it struggles, I hear it calculates, criticizes, survives, and loves in many ways. And I think this, of course, it's present in all of your poetry, but I thought that these poems like give us some feeling and thoughts about womanhood.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's for me, it was so essential to bring that voice out. I think that we don't especially when I was writing these poems in the 90s. And so it was important to talk about the many, many different ways in that one becomes a woman in this life. And in this next poem, which is actually a personal poem, but I hope it does carry over, it's addressed to my daughter when she was very young and full of innocence. I'll also say that she's biracial. And so there's also that whole feeling of mixture. And the title is from, it references a famous children's book, Mickey in the Night Kitchen by Maurice Sendak. After reading Mickey in the Night Kitchen for the third time before bed, I'm in the milk and the milk's in me. I'm Mickey. My daughter spreads her legs to find her vagina. Hairless, this mistaken bit of nomenclature is what a stranger cannot touch without her yelling. She demands to see mine, and momentarily we're a lopsided star among the spilled toys, my prodigious scallops exposed to her neat cameo. And yet, the same glazed tunnel, layered sequences. She is 3. That makes this innocent. We're pink, she shrieks and bounds off. Every month she wants to know where it hurts and what the wrinkled string means between my legs. This is good blood, I say, but that's wrong too. How to tell her that it's what makes us, Black mother, cream child, that we're in the pink and the pink's in us.
אחרי קריאת במטבח הלילה, בפעם השלישית לפני השינה. אני החלב והחלב בתוכי, אני מיקי. ביתי פושטת את רגליה למצוא את הנרתיק שלה. חף משיער, חלק קט זה, הנתון בטעות במערכת המינוח, ומה שזר לא יכול לגעת בו בלי שתצרח. היא תובעת לראות את שלי, ובו ברגע אנו כוכב נטוי בין הצעצועים השפוכים, קונחיותיי המפליאות נחשפות בפני הקמע הנקי שלה. ועדיין מבריקה בשתנו, אותה נקבע ממש, אותם קיפולים רב שכבתיים. היא בת 3, זה מה שהופך את העניין לתמים. אנחנו ורודות, היא צועלת בקפיצה. מדי חודש היא מבקשת לדעת איפה זה כואב, ולמה מתכוון החוט המסתלסל בין רגליי. זה דם טוב, אני אומרת, אבל זו גם טעות. איך לומר לה שזה מה שעושה אותנו? אמא שחורה, ילדה שמנת, שאנחנו בוורוד, והוורוד בתוכנו. I want to share that I translated it. It's actually the first poem I've translated of yours.
Oh, really?
by chance in the internet, and I did it as a quite young and fresh mother myself, and I was so touched with the gentleness and the playfulness of a moment of freedom and love with the body, with mother-daughter bodies. It's a wonderful and so important poem, I think. Really.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Kharmit. You know, it is true that that so often, if we talk about the body, it's either to defend it, the female body, particularly to defend it, or to chastise the body for not being what we want, and to moan it. And there is something in the way that a child and in motherhood where the body feels so absolutely right. And as you said, gentle and loving, and I wanted to get that across. So I didn't know that was the first one you translated, but I'm so glad that you did.
Me too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, this next poem, which kind of ties into that, we're talking about the female body and the things that are never talked about sometimes. And in this case, it is a question of trying to manage one's menstrual period, which can get screwed up in many different ways. And this, especially when one is traveling. Nature's itinerary. Irene says, it's the altitude that makes my period late. This time, though, it's eluded me entirely. I shouldn't worry. I'm medically regulated. But hell, I brought these 30 sanitary pads all the way from Kern to Mexico, prepared for more than metaphorical bloodletting among the glad rags of the Festival Internacional de Poesia, and I forbid my body to be so cavalier. Taking the pill is like using a safety net, but then beforehand having a beer. A man's invention to numb us so we can't tell which way the next wind's blowing. So one of the things that always intrigued me is that there are so many things human beings manage with their body, and particularly with women, that the men just don't know, that you're counting, that you're waiting for the period, that there's sometimes pain and bloating, and then you have to figure out, especially if you're traveling, what you can take or not. And so though this poem has a lightheartedness to it, kind of forbidding the body to be so cavalier and all that kind of stuff, underneath it, there is that feeling of, this is one of those things that, yet again, women have to manage that is a burden in a way. I mean, it is something that can distract you, and you have to figure out how to manage it. Just as taking a pill is a wonderful thing, but at the same time, it makes you less attuned to your body. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I will I read the translation, the Hebrew translation. I'll do it, and then
yes.
I'll continue. Yes, thank you. לוח הזמנים של הטבע. אירין אומרת שהגובה גורם לווסת שלי לאחר. הפעם בכל אופן היא חמקה ממני לגמרי. אין לי מה לדאוג, אני מוסדרת רפואית. אבל לעזאזל, סחבתי את 30 התחבושות ההיגייניות האלה, כל הדרך מכאן למקסיקו, בציפייה להרבה יותר מאשר הקזת דם מטאפורית, בין הסמרטוטים השמחים של פסטיבל אינטרנציונל דה פואזיה. ואני אוסרת על גופי לשים עליי פס. לקחת את הגלולה זה כמו לסמוך על רשת ביטחון, אבל רגע לפני להוריד בירה. המצאה של גבר לטשטש אותנו, כך שלא נוכל לומר לאן נושבת הרוח.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to ask you, Rita.
Yes.
You use a lot of sonnets, the 14 lines, and specifically this poem, I think it's very unique and special, and I want to hear what you have to say about it.
Yes, it's true. I do. I have ended up, I guess you could say, writing a lot of sonnets. I don't set out to write sonnets specifically, though. In this poem and also in the poem Exit that I read earlier, there are both sonnets, and they're part of a book of sonnets, really, called Mother Love. The sonnet is a love poem, but love has many ramifications, and I like working with our notions of love, what we imagine love to be like, through this form, which and playing around with the form also subverts the traditional feelings of how love should play out. So in this case, though there is a lot of joking around about the body, it's also a playfulness, saying that even still there's a feeling of camaraderie and love between Irene and me as we discuss these womanly things, and that feeling is what propels, I think, the sonnet, the emotion of the sonnet. The sonnet is such a portable form. It's 14 lines. It's just it's a goblet of thought, a caught moment in time, and I love that space of time in which to work.
Isn't it a traditional manly structure, or is it? Do we need new sonnets, or to? I don't know. Like, I just wonder, or how is the feeling for you to use so massively, intensively, a structure that traditionally is so manly, maybe?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, yes, we have so many sonnets which are written by men, which are addressed to a woman or about love between a man and a woman. It's always the man's point of view. So I think it's time for women to give their point of view and to talk about it that way. And in fact, in my new book, I have a sonnet for the sonnet, in which I chastise the sonnet for all of its traditional, ways. This to me is a way, it's a kind of way of to use the sonnet and to expand it and to talk about things from a woman's point of view is a wonderfully revolutionary way to deal with a traditional form. I frankly believe that if one throws away the old tradition and says, that has nothing to do with me, you're actually throwing away perhaps some good stuff too. And so instead of saying no sonnets because men do them, I'll say, no, let's see what happens when a woman does it.
Yeah, so you adapt.
So I do it.
Yeah, wonderful. So we'll stay with women, but now we'll get to know several women that aren't you or your autobiographic speaker, at least not directly. So I will read 3 portrait poems devoted to certain heroines. I also found photos. Okay, let's start.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay.
This is addressed to Rosa Parks. Rosa, how she sat there, the time right, inside a place so wrong it was ready. That trim name with its dream of a bench to rest on, her sensible coat. Doing nothing was the doing. The clean flame of her gaze carved by a camera flash. How she stood up when they bent down to retrieve her purse. That courtesy.
רוזה, איך ישבה שם, נכונה, בזמן הנכון, במקום הלא נכון. שושנה גזומה, שהיה לה חלום על ספסל לנוח עליו, מעילה הפשוט. אי עשייה הייתה עשייה. הלהבה הנקייה של מבטה, חקוקה בהבזק מצלמה. איך הזדקפה כשהתכופפו להשיב את ארנקה. אצילות. Okay. Yeah, and I wrote a photo of Rosa Parks, and I think it's Martin Luther in the background.
Yes, Martin Luther King Jr., yes.
Yeah. So we need these heroines now. Well,
I know that when she, Rosa Parks, when she was arrested for violating the segregation rules and sitting in the wrong section of the bus in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955, when they took her to the court, someone yelled out of the audience, out of the crowd that had gathered around the court, "Oh, she's so sweet. Oh, they are in trouble now." And you can see from that photograph that face. Gosh. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you have a book. It is called In the Bus with Rosa Parks.
Yes. On the Bus with Rosa Parks. And there's a section that deals with all of these women who were unlikely heroines because they stood up at the moment, or sat down in her case, at the moment when it was needed. You know, and yeah. So here is another woman. Shall I go on?
Yeah.
All right. Let's get all of these wonderful women together. This is the great Billie Holiday, the jazz singer. The poem is called Canary. I will just say that canary was not only the word that musicians used to refer to the female vocalist, the singer, but I couldn't help but think that it was also the bird that coal miners used to take down into the mines. And if the bird died, they knew there was a gas leak and it wasn't safe for men. Canary, for Michael S. Harper. Billie Holiday's burned voice had as many shadows as lights, a mournful candelabra against a sleek piano, the gardenia her signature under that ruined face. Now you're cooking drummer to bass, magic spoon, magic needle. Take all day if you have to, with your mirror and your bracelet of song. Fact is, the invention of women under siege has been to sharpen love in the service of myth. If you can't be free, be a mystery.
כנרית, למייקל סמך הרפר. כולה החרוך של בילי הולידיי, מתמלא צללים ואורות במידה זהה. נברשת בוכייה מול פסנתר מבהיק. הגרדניה שלה על הפנים ההרוסות האלה. עכשיו את מבשלת, תוף לבס, כף של קשף, מחט קשף. קחי את היום כולו, אם את חייבת, עם הראי שלך ועם רדיד שירך. עובדה, ההמצאה של נשים במצוקה, לתשה אהבה לפי צורכי המיתוס. אם נבצר ממך להיות בת חורים, ההיא מסתורים.
Beautifully read. There's that gardenia.
Yeah, I did.
Wow. Michael S. Harper, to whom that poem was dedicated, that was a wonderful African-American poet who wrote a lot of tributes and poems to jazz musicians. And he was one of my mentors in the sense that I felt that he had gone before and shown that these voices could be, and these lives could be brought out, not only through music, but through poetry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this third wonderful woman is Frida Kahlo, another sonnet. Sonnet in primary colors. This is for the woman with one black wing perched over her eyes. Lovely Frida, erect among parrots in the stern petticoats of the peasant, who painted herself a present, wildflowers entwining the plaster corset her spine resides in, the romance of mirrors. Each night, she lay down in pain and rose to the celluloid butterflies of her beloved dead, Lenin and Marx and Stalin arrayed at the footstead, and rose to her easel, the 100 dogs panting like children along the graveled walks of the garden, Diego's love a skull in the circular window of the thumbprint searing her immutable brow.
סונטה בצבעי יסוד. זה לאישה שכנף שחורה אחת נחה מעל עיניה. פרידה הנפלאה, זקופה בין תוכים. בחוטונת נוקשה של יקרה, שציירה לעצמה מתנה. פרחי בר מסתרגים במחוך הגבס. שדרתה שוכנת ברומנטיקה של מראות. מדי לילה נשכבה כאובה וקמה אל פרפרי הצלולעיד של אהוביה האמיתים, לנין ומרקס וסטלין במחלצות על הדום, וקמה אל כאן הציור שלה, 100 כלבים מתנשפים כילדים לאורך שבילי חצץ בגינה. אהבתו של דייגו היא גולגולת בחלון המעוגל של טביעת האצבע החורכת את גבתה הנצחית. So,
yes.
I think there are more paintings that find in this sonnet.
Yes, these were the paintings in particular that I had in mind when talking about Frida. And of course, Diego Rivera was both her beacon and her sword, I guess you could say. You know, he was, he imprinted himself on her, and she struggled with and against that imprint all her life, I think.
So interesting.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah. But she painted it out too. She painted out both that pain and that relationship. And in the end, I think the art itself triumphed over the I guess the struggle of her life. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
want to ask you, Rita.
Yes.
When we are following these heroines, I'm thinking about the genealogy that your poetry presents or creates. Harold Bloom suggested to adapt a perspective of Oedipal perspective of a son kills his poet father when a new poet emerged. And this have already became a history, but I wonder, what are your art ancestors and ancestresses? Who are your uncles and aunts? Some of your heroes and heroines we've just met, but I'm sure there are many. If you want to tell us about that.
Well, it's so interesting because when I think about my my heroes or my ancestors or ancestresses, the first and foremost in that genealogy are my mother, my grandmothers, my aunts, these women who no one knows, but who, just by their very example and the way in which they move through the world, taught me so much, not only as a woman, but also as Black women. So how to manage the invisibility and the denigration that they endured, both from white people in general, but also from Black men, and how to do that with dignity. And I must say that I was, when the more I look back on the lives of, for instance, my grandmothers, and how they survived, and how they survived with, sometimes with irony and with a joke. When I think about my aunts who could tell a story, they could reel out a story like nobody's business. I mean, the music that they applied to it in order to give you all of the meanings and to say there's more beneath this tale than what I'm telling you. Those were their instruments of survival. And their instruments of survival were often oral and were based in language. So my very first impressions of how to say more than you're saying, I guess you could say, were from them. After which, in terms of poetry itself, I would say there were people, I'd mentioned Michael S. Harper, but also even Shakespeare. I mean, Shakespeare was a master at this, and as someone who could massage the language so that it not only sang, but it stabbed at the same time. Listening to jazz was really really important for me, because those, especially the female vocalists, they could take a word like Billie Holiday, they could take a word and make you see about 5 different sides to it, and see that it, that something could be both beautiful and incredibly painful, and help you bear whatever pain you had because the music was beautiful. So these were some of my earliest, before I even dreamed of becoming a poet, these were some of my earliest influences. So that when I did start writing and moving in, onto the page, I wanted to bring some of that with me.
Thank you. It's so interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we'll follow now to the next 2 poems about the processes has to do with the processes of reading and writing, and
yes,
we'll make think more about these initial experiences you were talking about. I don't know. Maybe it's the starting point for everything. And I want to, the first book that we read now was translated by Moshe Dor, the late Moshe Dor. Moshe Dor was a poet, and a well-known poet and translator, Israeli translator, and in 2000, he gave to print this anthology of your selected poems, ארוחת בוקר של אלופים, or a breakfast for teachers. And I think it's really a very interesting anthology that gives us the feeling of your voice, and a good getting to know your poetry, a good feeling about poetry. So let's read and continue afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, all right, I'll read this. And it was the beginning. The first book. Open it. Go ahead, it won't bite. Well, maybe a little. More a nip-like, a tingle. It's pleasurable, really. You see, it keeps on opening. You may fall in. Sure, it's hard to get started. Remember learning to use knife and fork? Dig in. You'll never reach bottom. It's not like it's the end of the world. Just the world as you think you know it.
הספר הראשון בתרגום השידור. פתחי אותו, המשיכי, הוא לא נושך, ובכן אולי קצת. זה יותר כמו צביטה, תחושת הקיצה. יש בכך תענוג, באמת. את רואה? הוא ממשיך להיפתח. את עלולה ליפול לתוכו. ודאי, ההתחלה קשה. את זוכרת כשלמדת להשתמש בסכין ובמזלג? העמיקי לחפור. לעולם לא תגיעי לקרקעית. זה לא סוף העולם, רק העולם כפי שאת חושבת שאת מכירה.
And I'll read the second one right away. This one is called Dawn Revisited. Imagine you wake up with a second chance. The blue jay hawks his pretty wares, and the oak still stands, spreading glorious shade. If you don't look back, the future never happens. How good to rise in sunlight, in the prodigal smell of biscuits, eggs, and sausage on the grill. The whole sky is yours to write on, blown open to a blank page. Come on, shake a leg. You'll never know who's down there frying those eggs if you don't get up and see.
שחר ביקור מחדש. דמייני שאת מתעוררת להזדמנות נוספת. האורבני הכחול מציג מרכולתו היפה לראווה, והאלון עודו ניצב, פורס צל מרהיב. אם לא תביטי לאחור, העתיד לא יתרחש לעולם. מה טוב להתעורר לאור שמש, בריח המותרות של מאפים, ביצים ונקניקיות צלויות. כל השמיים שלך לכתוב עליהם, דף ריק, פתוח לרווחה. בואי, קומי על רגלייך. לעולם לא תדעי מי שם למטה מטגן את הביצים ההן. אם לא תקומי ותראי.
We have a question from the audience. We're just about to end our great, lovely meeting. And just to say one thing about Moshe Doe's translation, at least my generation, when read this book, Rita Dove was well known. and it's a dream come true for me to meet you. Many years, the name Rita Dove, and here you are live, and I'm so happy that this simple dream has come true. Oh. And there's an interesting question from the audience. Is there something burning in your soul right now, politically, socially, these days?
Ooh. Well, yes. I do think that I'm coming to grips, as many of us are, with the level of hate and vitriol and fear that is moving through the world, and the way, the shamelessness with which people go ahead and express it. And I think I grew up a little more optimistic than that. It's odd. Maybe, so I'm dealing, I really want to get at that. I want to understand it. I think we all do. I want to be able to write about it without, weeping and without screaming, if it's possible, somewhere in between. So that does concern me, yes. Also, what concerns me, because I'm at that point, I'm 70 years old, and I don't believe it, but I am. And so I want to really write about aging and what that means. Thank you for that question.
Thank you for the audience. And this topic of aging is very important because you basically you brought up in the 60s, where popular culture began to be the most important culture around the world, universal, and it's a culture of young people. And that's its basic theme. And it didn't do good for aging, because you have to be forever young. And these poems about aging are bringing us back 1,000, 2,000 years ago, where the elderly were the smart and adult people. And today they're in the gutters. So I really sympathize with this choice of yours. Thank you. Carmit, we have a few more minutes. We can, 7 and a few minutes, it's okay. If you have another poem or something to ask or something to say.
In fact, I'm really interested, Rita, to hear about like your first experiences of reading and writing. You talked a bit about your childhood and how important was your family for you. Maybe if you want to share with us a bit.
Well, you know what? Sure. My father was a scientist. He was a chemist, and my mother loved literature. And as a consequence, I think we did have books in the house. We had a bookshelf. It was very strange, very eclectic. There were books about science and math, and then there was Shakespeare and an anthology of poetry, and everything was all mixed up. And they let us, there were 4 of us, children, their philosophy was that you read what you understood. And if you didn't understand it at a certain point, you stopped reading it. So they didn't forbid us to read anything, which I think was so essential. I just dabbled in all of it and stumbled, and no one told me, that Shakespeare was too much for a 10-year-old. So I just pulled down that huge book and started to read Shakespeare. And what I understood, I loved, and what I didn't understood, I skipped, right? So I grew up without that fear. I think so many people have fear of of being judged, that they didn't get it right when they read literature. I grew up with a real visceral relationship to books. And that was so important. I do think that my parents had hoped that I would become a scientist too. Everyone else in my family did. But no, I became the poet. To my parents' credit, when I did announce that I wanted to be a poet, and that was not until I was about 20. It was not something I was supposed to do. I could get that from the air, just that as a young Black woman, I was supposed to be a credit to the race, and that meant doctor, teacher, lawyer. And so I tried to do all of those things, and I loved poetry. But to their credit, my parents said, my father particularly said, well, I don't understand poetry, so don't be upset if I don't read it. And that was fine with me. I said, ooh, good, I have a free pass. As it turns out, now my father both of my parents are gone now, but I've discovered some of the letters that he wrote to my mother, and he really was a poet,
Oh. We have also freedom. We see that the freedom was there for you in the lives of reading and writing at home with your family. It's so important. That's a gift.
Yeah, it was.
Do you want to read the last poem, the short one, or you didn't have it there?
Let's read the last and
that
short.
Would be the ending.
Love poem for and it's one suggested Rita, right? Scarf.
Yes.
So we'll end with that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, this is a very short poem. It's in my latest book, Playlist for the Apocalypse. Scarf. Whoever claims beauty lies in the eye of the beholder, has forgotten the music silk makes settling across a bared neck. skin never touched so gently except by a child or a lover.
סעיף. כל מי שטוען שיופי נמצא בעין המתבונן, שכח את המוזיקה שמשי מפיק כשהוא נפרס על צוואר חשוף. אור שמעולם לא בא במגע כה עדין, אלא של ילד או אהוב.
Beautiful, thank you. I just might say that the English has stanzas. I don't know what happened there, but in the Hebrew, the stanzas are there.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to thank you very much, Rita and Carmit, for this joyful event, you know, in these crazy times. This is what we went, ecstasy. And we received this beautiful ecstasy from you. And Rita, if you want to say something, please, Carmit.
Well, thank you so much. It was a joy to be here. And as you say, I love the fact that you said that there's a little bit of ecstasy in this, these crazy times, that's so important too, to be able to stop and to feel the gentleness of a scarf or a child or a lover. But thank you. Thank you so much, Carmit. This was a delight.
Thank you, Rita. It was very inspiring performance and conversation. And it was really such a pleasure to be together with you and your poems. I want to thank also Poetry Place for actively nurturing our literary and cultural sphere nowadays, especially. And I want also to thank specifically to you, Gilad, for your editing process with much patience. And Netzer, Noah, I want to thank friends like Eran Silgov that for long, fruitful and helpful dialogue about translation, Rita Tarkovsky, Mital Nissim for their support. And Rita, I think that my hope came true, and our meeting was fulfilling like a poem short, a particle of something much, much larger, but really full of meaning and experience. I really thank you from all my heart.
Mm. And from mine to yours. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we will meet in about half an hour at 7:30 in Israel, at 7:30. With Jacek Danel from Poland, and with Hannah Herzig, his translator. So thank you very much. And to be continued, Rita.
Okay, I like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. It was lovely.
Thank you. Thank you. I had a great time. Thank you.
Your answer about your aunt and grandmothers and the mom was inspiring me. That the simple people of our lives, they are the people that important to us in the end.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they are.
Thank you.
Thank you.